Villains. Throughout Zelda's lengthy timeline, they have been the plague of the surface, new, old, and lesser Hyrule, the Great Sea, Termina, Labrina, and Holodrum. No matter where they have appeared or who they were, the only thing certain was that they brought death, misery, and suffering. As this is the closest you will ever get to pure evil in Zelda, this is the Villains Timeline.
The origins of the Demon King Demise are unknown, but what we do know is that he was around since the creation of the world, sought after the Triforce for millennia, and was a cocky, dark, and powerful figure of few words. As the representation of the dark side in the Zelda series, and with the close to biblical proportions of Skyward Sword's writing, there is no need to hide it. The Demon King Demise is obviously meant to be the equivalent of the devil in the Zelda series, the root of all Hyrule's suffering. He sought the destruction of mankind and the surface's protector goddess Hylia to utilise the omnipotent Triforce to remake the world in his own image. Fi's description of Demise and Skyward Sword speaks for itself. He is the source of all monsters and has even conquered time itself.
His hate was without boundaries, and with his faithful servant and right hand, the demon lord Ghirahim, or the Shining One, the Light Bearer, they represented true evil. The brutal campaign of the demon forces caused the close to complete extermination of the human race. In fact, if it wasn't for Goddess Hylia's evacuation of the rest of the ancient human civilization to the sky, then the evil forces would have killed them all. Demise noted this in his speech to the hero of the skies.
The humans I have known were weak things, hardly more than insects, shivering under rocks and ready to flee at a mere glimpse of me. When I last walked this world, they did little more than scream and cling to their goddess, mewling and praying, counting on her to protect them.
This overwhelming force of evil caused the divine and mortal tribes left on the surface to join forces and combine face, defeat, and ultimately seal or banish the evil overlord in the sealed grounds. However, this target was only partially achieved, as Demise's servant, Demon Lord Ghirahim, escaped imprisonment or annihilation. After Goddess Hylia sacrificed her immortal form in order to wield the complete Triforce as a mortal and passed away, he must have been planning the resurrection of his master.
In contrast to the dark character of Demise, Ghirahim was a flamboyant, well fabulous, overconfident but also civilized persona with a habit to go completely insane. As the greatest narcissist of the surface, he saw himself as a stunning, exquisite and pure being. His Dark Knight posture made him act at first like a polite snob and gentleman who kicked downwards and mocked the weak. Let there be no doubt, Ghirahim was out there to inflict pain. At the same time, he was as naive as it gets, and continued to let the hero of the skies slip away even when he stood in his way to his prey, the reincarnation of the goddess Hylia, Zelda. The only ingredient needed in order to resurrect his fallen master, the imprisoned Demise. He utilised his powers to awake some of the worst monstrosities that the surface had been hiding, but despite upgrades to his skin defense, he failed to capture Zelda or take out Link until it appeared that everything was lost for Ghirahim and his cause in the present time.
Nevertheless, time was not an obstacle for Ghirahim, who grabbed the opportunity, captured one last time Zelda, and brought her back to the distant past through the Gate of Time. There he did his very best to complete his ritual, and though he was once again humiliated by the hero of the skies in battle, his persistence led to the resurrection and freeing of Demise from his imprisonment. He in return dealt with his servant appropriately, ripping out Ghirahim's true form, the Anti-Master Sword. All seemed to be lost both in the past and present, as Demise sought vengeance after being imprisoned.
The goddess lowered herself to a mortal existence to keep me imprisoned. How pathetic! This bag of flesh pales in comparison to the magnificence of her previous form.
Despite being given the opportunity to flee, Link crossed his fears and accepted a one-on-one duel against Demise.
The hate for the gods that has boiled in my veins, you will taste all of it in the bite of my blade.
To Demise's disbelief, he instead got a taste of the Master Sword, but would not let Link have the final word as he cast a lasting curse on Link, Zelda, and their descendants in his final breath.
Though this is not the end, my hate never perishes. It is born in a cycle of no end. I will rise again. Those like you, those who share the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero, they are eternally bound to this curse. An incarnation of my hatred shall ever follow your kind, dooming them to wander a blood-soaked sea of darkness for all time.
So it began, and while it would take time for the curse to have a lasting effect, it did not halt other villains from agonizing the surface and later the young kingdom of Hyrule. First out before the establishment of the kingdom were the mysterious interlopers, who wielded dark magic and crafted frightening objects such as the fused shadow, and most likely the item they themselves feared and abandoned, but we'll get back later to. The interlopers, though powerful, were eventually disarmed by the spirits of Hyrule and then banished by the Hylians after the fused shadow was sealed away. In order to avoid future conflicts over the Triforce, the ancient sage Rauru brought it with him to the sacred realm deep within the confines of the Temple of Time. Then you had Vaati. Vaati is probably one of the most complicated and conflicted villains in the Zelda series. His name is highly tied to the element of wind, seeing as Vaati's Japanese name, Gufu, means tornado. As a young Minish, Vaati began his career as Eslo's apprentice in the Minish world. Unfortunately, unlike other peaceful Minish, Vaati had a fascination with the evil found in the hearts of men. Soon he was consumed by this obsession, and his desire for power rose. He learned about the legends of the Picori Blade and the Light Force, which were bestowed to the Hylians and more specifically the hero of men.
In conjunction with the 100th anniversary of the hero's victory over the evil forces, the portal between the Minish world and Hyrule was about to open. To celebrate this event, Eslo would create another gift to the Hylians, a powerful magical cap. Without Eslo's permission, Vaati stole the magic cap, cursed Eslo by turning him into a living Minish cap, and set his course towards Hyrule Castle to compete in the Picori Festival. All of this in order to find the mythical light force that he believed was hidden in the bound chest. But in the moment he opened the chest after turning the incumbent Princess Zelda into stone, he did not find the promised light force, but instead unleashed the great evil that had been sealed away by the hero of men 1 century prior.
Evidence of Vaati's great magic can be seen in the sorcerer's ability to impersonate the incumbent King Daltus to command the soldiers of Hyrule to look for the light force. Several of the soldiers suspected that the king was not the true king, but were afraid to oppose him under the threat of imprisonment. After extensive searches, Vaati realised that the only way to find the light source was to allow Link and Eslo to continue in their quest to reforge the Four Sword. This quest eventually led to the Elemental Sanctuary, where it was revealed that the light force resided in Princess Zelda. Upon learning this fact, Vaati knocked out Link and teleported back to Hyrule Castle in order to drain the light force from the princess. Upon Link's arrival to the castle, Vaati utilised the extracted light force to transform into his reborn form, and then in the moment his body was shattered by Link, he transformed into Vaati Transfigured, and finally Vaati's Wrath. Link found Vaati's final weak point, and it was presumed that the monstrosity was finally dead. Nonetheless, this was just the beginning, as Vaati's beast form would return and terrorise the land of Hyrule after breaking out of his prison, the Four Sword. Long gone were the days of remembrance of his life as a Picori, when he kidnapped maidens and even Princess Zelda, who he desired to become his bride, and twice brought them to the Palace of the Winds in the sky. Ultimately, he was crushed by the Four Links and resealed in the Four Sword.
An incarnation of my hatred shall ever follow your kind, dooming them to wander a blood-soaked sea of darkness for all time.
The inevitable reincarnation of the Demon King Demise, hatred, would in the end come in the form of the birth of a single male in the impoverished Gerudo tribe, Ganondorf. From his adolescence, after being raised by the old witches, Koumi and Kotaki, he strived to bring his tribe out of the misery of the desert. This was not meant to be, as the King of Thieves would instead face some of the greatest challenges in the lengthy history of his tribe. Not long after ascending to the crown, a new threat loomed over his kingdom in the form of Hylian imperialism and push for unification under de facto one ruler, the King of Hyrule. Faced by most likely increasing Hylian pressure, Ganondorf revoked his fealty to the royal family and fought against them in the lengthy and bloody Hyrulean Civil War.
The war dragged on, but in the end Ganondorf was once again forced to swear fealty to the King of Hyrule. But this would not end his plot and conspiracy against the royal family, as the King of Thieves had a new target in mind, the Triforce. Only a few years after the war, Ganondorf would exploit the courage of a young boy from the Kokiri Forest and the naive heir to the Hylian throne, Princess Zelda, to stage a coup d'etat, assassinate the king and trick his way into the Sacred Realm to claim a piece of the Triforce and fully take over Hyrule for 7 long years. Obsessed by the fact that the young boy would return as the chosen hero, he infested the temples of Hyrule with a phantom of himself, a resurrected dragon, an amoeba, an evil spirit from the Kakariko Well, and gave the task to Koume and Kutake to make sure that his servant Naboru would not turn against him. Despite all of these precautions, and also finally capturing Princess Zelda, the courage of the hero would eventually lead to a decisive confrontation over the Triforce and the future of Hyrule.
These toys are too much for you. I command you to return them to me.
In one outcome, Ganondorf was beaten by the Hero of Time and transformed into the Demon King Ganon. Despite knocking the Master Sword out of Link's hand, he could not prevent him from reclaiming it and piercing it straight into the beast's mouth. Ganon had lost to the Hero of Time in the decisive battle and was sealed away as Ganondorf by the 7 sages. After hundreds of years in the Sacred Realm in the Adult Era, Ganondorf once again turned into Ganon and successfully broke the seal that the original 7 sages had cast. Full of rage and anger, he sought vengeance against the Hylians and the descendants of the goddess and the hero. This led to a bloodbath without equal and forced the incumbent king Daphne's Nohansen Hyrule to seek intervention from the Golden Goddesses, with the Great Flood being its ultimate consequence.
Several hundreds of years passed, and over time Ganondorf slowly turned back to his humanoid form. Back to his normal self, he must have reflected over his past decisions and must have concluded that he wanted to bring the kingdom up to the surface. Unlike last time where he intended to overthrow the royal family, he actually thought that he was doing the people of the Great Sea a favour by bringing them back to their home, Hyrule. Even so, to prevent another defeat, he went on to kill the sages of Earth and Wind, Laruto and Fado, to not be taken down by the descendant of the Hero of Time, and the fully powered Master Sword at the first occasion. Eventually Ganondorf found a way up to the Great Sea, and began the search after the descendant of Princess Zelda by kidnapping young girls, including Tetra and then Link's sister Arul.
As Ganondorf had presumed, the Hero of the Winds pulled the unpowered Master Sword and failed to strike him down. Well aware that next time he would have to face him in the fully powered Master Sword, he kidnapped Zelda from Hyrule Castle and brought her to his tower.
What did the King of Hyrule say? That the god seals Hyrule away? And they left behind people who would one day awaken Hyrule? How ridiculous. Don't you see? All of you. Your gods destroyed you.
At this point, we can see an emotional turn from Ganondorf, who for the first time is not only out to spread evil and darkness, but to get Hyrule back from the bottom of the sea. So could it be that Ganondorf had honest intentions in bringing Hyrule back to life? Let's dive a little further.
My country lay within a vast desert. When the sun rose into the sky, a burning wind punished my lands, searing the world. And when the moon climbed into the dark of night, a frigid hail pierced our homes. But the winds that blew across the green fields of Hyrule brought something other than suffering and ruin. I coveted that wind, I suppose. Do not fear, I will not kill you. I merely have the need of the power that dwells within you.
So did Ganondorf desire nothing but to bring Hyrule back, making him the good guy and the king who desired to wash out the tragic past the bad guy? Or is Ganondorf simply too attached to the past to realise that the functioning settlements of the Great Sea don't need Hyrule? It's hard to tell, as we need to remember that Ganondorf took over Hyrule once in the past for 7 years and reigned with an iron fist. Then, on the other side, it appears that he wished for the best for his people ever since his first attempt, the Civil War. This first conflict gave his tribe an opportunity to escape poverty, and perhaps he saw it in a similar way for the poor souls of the Great Sea. We'll never get an answer to this, as the Hero of Winds killed Ganondorf by piercing his skull and turned him into stone with the Master Sword. Hyrule was washed away, but evil was not solely tied to Ganondorf, as in the vast reaches of the Great Sea, a terrible life-draining demon lurked.
The name of Bellum means war in Latin, and this evil phantom or demon was notorious for draining people's life force and possessing unaware victims, including Oshus, who fought back and ultimately locked it away in what can be considered as hell by Zelda standards. This was the bottom of the temple of the Ocean King. Upon breaking out of his imprisonment, Bellum created monsters to seal away the fairies of power, wisdom and courage, and built the ghost ship, no, not the one from Wind Waker, to use it as a trap to lure in treasure hunters. This included Tetra, who was lured into the trap and drained of her life force, and later Linebeck, who was possessed when facing against a demon. Ultimately, the Hero of the Winds beat Bellum with the Phantom Sword and absorbed the demon in it as it was reduced to the last of the Sand of Hours. He also freed Tetra and turned Oshus back to his actual form as a sperm whale, the Ocean King. What is interesting in this context is how Bellum appears as a squid-like beast, while Oshus is a sperm whale, two natural enemies in the aquatic kingdom. But apart from it, not much can be said about Bellum's motivations, apart from consuming life force, as the creature does not utter a single word throughout the entire game. Reunited Tetra, Link and the pirate crew continued on their journey until they reached a new land, which they named New Hyrule, and reinstated the monarchy. More settlers from the Great Sea followed. However, what was unbeknownst to the Hylians was the presence of the imprisoned Demon King Malladus. Long ago, he rose to power and spread havoc, leading to the Good Spirits' intervention and the outbreak of the Spirit War. The war caused the spirits to enforce all of their energy and bow to the light to eventually seal the beast by shackling him up with the spirit tracks and set a lock by erecting the Tower of Spirits. Seeing this, it is likely that Malladus could be the equivalent to Demise and Ganondorf in New Hyrule, as all of them have the title Demon King. A century would pass until the shackles, the spirit tracks, began to vanish, and Malladus was about to return thanks to the plot of the evil Chancellor Cole to use Zelda's body to reinstate the fallen Demon King. Thankfully, a new Link managed to retrieve the Bow of Light and drive the demon out of Zelda's body in the Dark Realm. Out of options, the demon possessed his accomplice, Chancellor Cole, and transformed into the beast he once was. This return to form would turn out to be temporary, as with the Locomo Sword, Link defeated and killed Malladus and Cole, but not before New Hyrule lay in ruins.
No villain in the Zelda series is as frightening as Majora, and it isn't the actions carried out that are terrifying, but the fact that unlike other villains in the Zelda series, it's not a living being but an object that was crafted. It doesn't have any emotions or sentiment, which makes it dangerous, as the only thing stated about the mask is that it was made by an ancient tribe for use in hexing rituals. According to legend, the troubles caused by the mask was so great that its creators, fearing a catastrophe, sealed the mask in the shadows forever. But what was this ancient tribe and where did they come from? Well, in Zelda there's only one object that properly resembles Majora's mask, the Fused Shadow. The ancestors of the Twilight tribe, the Interlopers, were renowned for their extensive abuse of dark magic, creating the Fused Shadow to seal the Triforce, and were plotting against the humans of the surface, crimes that finally led to their banishment to the Twilight Realm. This is an important point to make, since the mask and the Fused Shadow share a similar aesthetic design, with eyes serving as a specific clue. Could the Interlopers have created Majora's mask and been responsible for crafting 2 of the deadliest objects in Hyrule's and Termina's history, or is the mask simply a Terminian equivalent to the fused shadow? Seeing as the Terminian culture and traditions, similar to Venice, surround masks with the Carnival of Time serving as its culminating point, it would not be a stretch that a long extinct tribe carved out and added dark magical properties to a mask that was meant to be used as a weapon against other rival tribes.
The only problem was that instead of serving the host as a controllable object, the demon with the mask, Majora, took over the conscience of its weaker host and turned him or her into its puppet. The ancient tribe created a monster that most likely threatened the very existence of their civilization and world, and as a result could have hid the mask in the Stone Tower Temple, as this is by far the oldest province and location in Termina. A point supporting this claim is that an ancient tribe populates the kingdom of Ikana, and the history of this tribe is told to be stained with darkness. Of all the tribes, it appears that the ancient kingdom fits the description of the creators of the mask best, as the place had turned into a cursed hellhole by the Hero of Time's arrival. The entire kingdom was in a state of decay and under a curse caused by the Skull Kid and Majora's mask, but the worst part about this was that the descended king, Ego Stu Dikana, most likely was aware of the cause of his and the kingdom's troubles, and his only wish was to reinstate order and peace to his domain. The same goes with the royal composers Sharp and furthermore Flat, who admitted to the Hero of Time that he sold his soul to the devil, admitting that he dreamt to revive the royal family from the dead, and that it was the Skull Kid and Majora who cast the curse upon him.
Majora appears to have been a mask of doom. Its only goal was to cause havoc and then end it all by bringing the people of Termina out of their misery. A misery that Majora was able to inflict thanks to being found, bought, or stolen by the happy masked salesman, who was then robbed by the naive and weak Skull Kid, who was easy to manipulate and control for Majora. Under its influence, he went on a rampage across Termina and caused all of Termina's troubles, placed the cursed masks on the innocent creatures in each of Termina's 4 temples to seal the 4 giants, the guardian deities and protectors of Termina.
A puppet that can no longer be used as mere garbage. This puppet's role is ended.
These were the final words of Majora upon entering the moon. Gladly, the demon in the mask met its maker when the Hero of Time, as a reward, received the fierce deity's mask from the demon after fixing all of his antics, curses, and conquered the 4 trials inside the moon. With the combined power of a mask that game director Eiji Aonuma has stated consists of the combined memories of all of Termina's inhabitants' memories, he must have gained supreme power to destroy the demon inside Majora's mask.
When it comes to Majora's metaphor of good guys against bad guys, let's point out Majora was by no means good. It sought vengeance for being locked up for such a long time, and saw Link as the bad guy since he stood in the way from carrying out his vendetta on the people of Termina. It didn't desire to take the people out of their misery, no, it caused the misery and suffering and desired to make it complete by taking away any happiness they had left in their life. Majora deserved the fate it met, and being destroyed by Link in a final 3-stage battle, showing its true form and wrath in the final phase, was its final demise. In the child timeline, after Link was sent away to keep the Triforce safe from Ganondorf, the King of Thieves would finally get another opportunity to set Hyrule in flames.
Shortly after the hero's return from the adult era and warning to the princess, it is presumed that the King of Thieves launched a massive invasion on Hyrule, a failed attempt to obtain the Triforce, which resulted in the destruction of Lon Lon Ranch, Castletown, and Kakariko Village, and a temporary Gerudo occupation of a vast territory of the Kingdom of Hyrule. Eventually, the tide of war turned by the Hyrulean forces in Ganondorf, and the Gerudo were forced to surrender. In the aftermath that followed, the King of Thieves was sentenced to death. The tribe was expelled from the kingdom, and their holy shrine, the Spirit Temple, was turned into a prison and execution site, where Ganondorf, after a botched execution due to the Triforce of Power, was banished to the Twilight Realm. There his malice would lead another tyrant to power.
Zant was, since his birth, in line to the throne of the Twilight Realm, but when the time came for him to take his rightful place, he was skipped, and Midna became the Princess of Twilight. This could have been a result of Zant's extreme views and spreading hatred amongst the Twilight due to their imprisonment in the Twilight Realm. As a result, Zant lost his trust to the royal family and began to plot against them, but ultimately was unable to carry out his bidding. In despair, he began to look into the heavens for help when one day Ganondorf's malice plunged down into the Twilight Realm and bestowed the evil and twisted Twilight magical abilities. Zant then used his power to plunge the Twilight Realm into madness. Together, Ganondorf and Zant sought to unite the light world of Hyrule and the Twilight Realm into one singular realm, the Dark World.
Zant's influence continued to grow, and Ganondorf made sure that the clouds of darkness covered the realm. Under their influence, the inhabitants of the realm transformed into demons and eventually led Zant to gather an army that overthrew the royal family, cursed the Twilight Princess Midna, and crowned himself as King of Twilight. With his goals achieved, Zant would exact revenge on the Hylians by launching a massive invasion upon the Kingdom of Hyrule. His army of demons poured out from the Mirror of Twilight, and soon the Shadow Beasts stood at the gates of Castletown, taking out any Hyrulean knight or soldier standing in their way. Zant forced the Princess Zelda of the Twilight era to surrender and accept Hyrule to be covered in Twilight. By doing this, he paved the way for Ganondorf's return to Hyrule, where he would deal with Midna and her newfound hero personally. After failing to kill both the Twilight Princess and the hero of Twilight who he had previously cursed, he was finally forced to a showdown against the two at the Palace of Twilight.
There, Zant revealed his true insane persona as a madman and his plotted vendetta against the do-nothing royal family of the Twilight Realm. This plot would also be against the Hylians, who long ago had banished the Twilight's predecessors, the Interlopers, to the Twilight Realm after they had abused dark magic and the Fused Shadow to seal away the Triforce.
My god had only one wish, to merge shadow and light, and make darkness.
In a multi-stage battle, the hero of Twilight defeated the self-proclaimed King, while Midna tore him to shreds after revealing that Ganondorf was the key to her curse.
Midna, foolish Twilight Princess, the curse on you cannot be broken. As long as my master Ganon survives, he will resurrect me without cease.
Without any notice, Ganondorf had entered Hyrule Castle, sealed it, and taken Princess Zelda of the Twilight era as hostage. Midna utilized the reassembled Fused Shadow to crush the seal, and along with the hero of Twilight, confronted the King of Thieves, Ganondorf Dragmire.
Your people have long amused me, Midna, to defy the gods with such petty magic, only to be cast aside. How very pathetic. Pathetic as they were, they served me well. Their anguish was my nourishment. Their hatred bled across the void and awakened me. I drew deep of it and grew strong again. Your people had some skill to be sure, but they lacked true power.
The battle commenced, but after possessing Zelda, turning into Beast Ganon, going up against Midna, and then crushing the Fused Shadow into pieces. Despite these efforts, the hero of time made a short process of killing Ganondorf. Several hundreds of years after Ganondorf's demise, relations between the Gerudo and Hylians normalized, and the Gerudo tribe was given permission to return back to the kingdom. Unfortunately, one day the reincarnation of the King of Darkness, a new Ganondorf, was born into the tribe. After stealing the trident from the Forbidden Pyramid and the Dark Mirror from the Temple of Darkness, he sought to resurrect Vaati by creating a shadow link to stir chaos. He then went on to seal the 6 maidens and Princess Zelda within crystals. The shadow link tricked the new hero to pull the sacred 4 sword, causing him to split into 4 and free Vaati from his imprisonment. The hero was tasked to rescue the maidens, open a path to the realm of heavens, where Vaati was finally utterly destroyed, and with Zelda's help confronted and sealed the new Ganon in the 4 sword. Following this act, the blade was returned to its rightful pedestal at the 4 sword sanctuary. In one outcome, the hero of time took on Ganondorf, but failed to strike him down and was destroyed in the confrontation. The triumphant Ganondorf extracted the Triforce of Wisdom from Princess Zelda, the Triforce of Courage from the corpse of the hero, and transformed into the Demon King Mandrag Ganon. Faced by this horrific sight, the seven sages, led by the adult Princess Zelda, as a last resort sealed the Demon King with a complete Triforce in the Sacred Realm. The Master Sword was laid to rest in the Temple of Time, waiting for a new hero to pull it in Hyrule's hour of need. Peace returned to Hyrule, but Ganondorf's takeover had exposed the location of the Triforce, and greedy individuals found their way into the corrupted realm, where they were transformed into monsters and included into Ganon's growing army. The Sacred Realm grew more and more unstable until the incumbent king of Hyrule ordered 7 sages to seal the Sacred Realm with the Triforce and sent his knights to guard them. In the moment when the sages were about to seal off the Sacred Realm, demons poured out, marking the outbreak of the imprisoning war. A fierce battle ensued, where the knights took the full brunt of Ganon's minions and fought courageously until the seal was secured. Hyrule lay in ruins. The majority of the knights were dead. Most of the races, including the Gorons and Zoras, left, and the bloodline of the Hylians began to wane. Despite decline, the land remained at peace until a sudden disaster struck Hyrule. It was at that time when Aghanim the Wizard appeared and quelled the tumultuous. Gaining the soldiers' trust, the wizard tricked and murdered him, cast a spell on the soldiers, began to kidnap and send the descendants of the 7 sages to the Dark World in an attempt to break the seal set on his master Ganon. Among them was Princess Zelda, who eventually was rescued from the castle dungeon by the young Link, who went out to pull the Master Sword. In his absence, Aghanim managed to kidnap Princess Zelda once more, and then bring both her and Link with him to the Dark World. The hero found himself in a twisted underworld and wasted no time freeing the maidens from the temples of the underworld and rescued Princess Zelda, who broke the barrier surrounding Ganon's tower. The hero of legend challenged and defeated Aghanim and faced Ganon in a decisive confrontation. He suppressed the dark magic attacks of the Demon King and finally struck him down with the Master Sword, putting an end to his tyranny over the Dark World. The hero laid his hand on the reclaimed Triforce and wished for the restoration of peace and the fallen to the world, bringing the murdered king and his uncle back to life. The Master Sword was left to rest again, and the Triforce was secured in the care of the royal family as the Dark World slowly faded away. Sometime after, in a different generation, the twin witches, Twinrova, plotted to resurrect Ganon by lighting the flames of destruction and sorrow stolen by Onyx and the flame of despair stolen by Varen, and offer a sacrifice. Guided by the Triforce in Hyrule Castle, Link, the hero of legend, was teleported to the lands of Holodrum and later Labrina. Wielding the Rod of Seasons, Link connected the essences of nature, located Din, the Oracle of Seasons, and defeated Onyx. He was then sent to Labrina to locate Nehru, the Oracle of Sages, and Farore, the Oracle of Secrets. Using the Harp of Ages to travel back and forth in time, Link collected the essences of time and defeated the evil sorceress of shadows, Varen, who had possessed Nehru in the present and Queen Ambi in the distant past. Nevertheless, Twinrova succeeded in lighting the flames and kidnapping Princess Zelda, who were prevented from sacrificing her, forcing the witches to sacrifice themselves. Since the ceremony was butchered, Ganon returned as a brainless beast and was taken down by the hero of this era. It would take time until a new Link would rise to claim the Master Sword in the land of Hyrule, which experienced another era of peace until Yuga, the sorcerer, who similarly to Aghanim kidnapped the descendants of the 7 sages, interrupted it. However, unlike the wizard, he trapped them inside paintings. After obtaining the 3 pendants of virtue, the hero pulled the Master Sword from the decayed Temple of Time, destroyed the barrier surrounding Hyrule Castle, and beat Yuga, who escaped with the painting of Princess Zelda through a crack in the wall. Link merged into the crack and found himself in the decayed Lorule, dimension opposite to Hyrule. Using the 7 paintings of the sages and the Triforce of Power, Yuga revived Ganon, but was in the last moment stopped by Princess Hilda of Lorule. The hero set out to free the trapped sages, was gifted the Triforce of Courage, and battled Yuga in a decisive confrontation in Lorule Castle, just to be betrayed and found out that everything had been staged by Princess Hilda in order to salvage her crumbling kingdom after her predecessors had in the past destroyed the Triforce of Lorule to avoid conflicts. Princess Hilda extracted the Triforce of Wisdom from Princess Zelda and demanded Link to hand over the Triforce of Courage. When he refused, she sent out Yuga Ganon to destroy him, but was after a short skirmish betrayed by Yuga, who took the Triforce of Wisdom from her. Only Link and the Triforce of Courage stood in the way from Ganon's return and takeover, but in that very moment, Princess Zelda granted Link the Bow of Light. After a long battle between walls, he finally managed to destroy Ganon and Yuga and obtain the complete Triforce. Lorule was reaching its end, but instead of wishing for the salvage of Hyrule and the Sacred Realm, Link and Zelda wished for Lorule's Triforce to be restored, and as a result, saving the grateful Princess Hilda and her kingdom from certain doom. Sometime after restoring peace to Hyrule and Lorule, the new hero of legend embarked in disguise to the kingdom of Hytopia. There he was recognized and asked to rescue Princess Styla from the ugly jumpsuit curse cast by Lady Maud. He was sent on this adventure along with 2 other heroes to confront the vicious lady and free Styla from her curse. The complete Triforce passed down the royal family, securing order and prosperity to the land. This state of matters continued until one of the aging kings saw mistrust in his son. As a result, he split the Triforce and hid away the Triforce of Courage, casting a spell over it. When the king eventually passed away, his son only inherited the Triforce of Power, which led him to interrogate his sister, Princess Zelda, but as she refused to confess either about the Triforce of Wisdom or the Triforce of Courage, the confident wizard and secret follower of Ganon cast a sleeping spell on the princess. Full of grief, the young king placed his sleeping sister on an altar in the North Castle, and as the Triforce was split, Hyrule began to crumble, losing more and more of its territory, until it was nothing but a shadow of its former self. Hyrule was deserted, but this did not prevent Ganon's followers from resurrecting the bereft of intelligence Demon King, who invaded the land and stole the Triforce of Power. The reigning Princess Zelda feared the worst and split the Triforce of Wisdom into 8 pieces and hid them across the temples of the land, and then ordered her nursemaid Impa to find a new hero. Angered by the princess's actions, Ganon captured her and sent his minions after Impa. Luckily, in the moment Impa was surrounded by the Demon King's underlings, Link appeared and saved her, and went on to collect the 8 shards of the Triforce of Wisdom hidden in the dungeons of Lesser Hyrule. With the reassembled Triforce of Wisdom, Link penetrated Ganon's stronghold, defeated the Demon King with the Silver Arrow, and rescued Princess Zelda, restoring peace to Hyrule with the Triforce of Power and Wisdom back in its rightful hands. Following the final destruction of Ganon, Link helped in the reconstruction efforts. 6 years passed, and the crest of the Triforce of Courage appeared on his hand. He was instructed by the aging Impa to locate the Triforce of Courage after telling him about the sleeping princess. But he would need to be careful, as Ganon's minions seeked Link's blood to resurrect their fallen master. Impa entrusted the hero with 6 crystals and a scroll with the location of the Triforce of Courage, sending him out on one of his toughest adventures yet for the 6 palaces and the statues located in these. Link conquered these challenges in the Guardian of the Great Temple, the final trial prepared by the king, and obtained the Triforce of Courage. Using the combined power of the restored complete Triforce, he awoke Princess Zelda and brought peace to Hyrule. Long after that, and the remaining timeline branches for that matter, we don't know what happened to Ganon. Was he resurrected? Or was it only his hatred that eventually built up into the being known as Calamity Ganon? Once again, the answer is that we don't know. Could it be that Calamity Ganon is the only villain, and the other villains that we have brought up here were just legends and one true timeline of events, where there is only one massive evil, namely Calamity Ganon? Anyhow, Calamity Ganon was the worst of the worst, in the sense that after his defeat 10,000 years prior, he actually succeeded to destroy the kingdom of Hyrule and nearly annihilate the rest of the land.
In this Hyrule, Calamity Ganon symbolized the apocalypse, an evil being that required the effort of all of Hyrule's radically different tribes to be sealed away, and for a ridiculously long time the evil was contained through the effort of the Sheikah and their highly advanced technology, the Guardians and the Divine Beasts. The latter of these were piloted by chosen members of the Gorons, Zoras, Rito and Gerudo tribes, who made it possible for the hero of Hyrule to weaken and deliver the defeated beast to the Princess of Hyrule, who sealed the monstrosity away for another 10,000 years. Close to 10,000 years passed until Calamity Ganon broke free from the seal, and this time stood a chance as the incumbent Princess Zelda was unable to utilize her sealing powers, and a shameful schism within the proud Sheikah tribe had delivered him an unexpected ally, the Yiga clan, who sought the princess's and the hero's blood. It was under these crucial circumstances of betrayal and tragedies that the daughter of King Roam Bosphoramus Hyrule, following her mother's premature death, was unable to unleash her power, even in the wake of the worst possible evil. Zelda could be accused, but at the end of the day her sealing power wouldn't make much of a difference when Calamity Ganon turned everything against the Hylians, the princess and the hero, by corrupting and turning the Guardians and Divine Beasts against their masters.
This was when the champions of the Zora, Goron, Rito, and Gerudo tribes perished in their battle against the Blights of Ganon, and thus were unable to aid Link and Zelda in the battle for Hyrule. Calamity Ganon's greatest desire was fulfilled. Hyrule Castletown was burned down to the ground. The king was dead, and the hero was stuck in cryogenic stasis for the next 100 years after he fell in battle. The kingdom of Hyrule collapsed, but the land survived thanks to the sacrifice of Princess Zelda, who, after discovering the secrets to her power, was able to hold Calamity Ganon in a stalemate for the next 100 years. Upon the hero's awakening, there were only his minions, Blights, Guardians, and the Yiga clan who could prevent the hero from a final showdown at Hyrule Castle. And attempt they did, in particular the Yiga clan scouts, Blade Masters, and on the very top, Master Koga. Even so, none of them posed a real threat to the battle-hardened Hylian champion, who was able to fight his way through their hideout, across the 4 divine beasts of Hyrule, and set their aim at Calamity Ganon.
The hour of redemption had arrived, as Link made his last preparations and then destroyed the Guardians and Lynels, claimed the Hylian shield, stormed the rest of Hyrule Castle, and finally confronted the scourge of the castle, Calamity Ganon. Zelda dropped her grip of the monstrosity, which threw Link down to the castle laboratory, but as it was about to unleash its fury, the champions and divine beasts came to Link's rescue. Sending a powerful combined beam, they greatly weakened Calamity Ganon and set the stage for Link to unleash the true power of the Master Sword. Calamity Ganon was destroyed. The only thing that remained was to destroy the reincarnating curse that was Dark Beast Ganon. Luckily, though still trapped within Ganon, Princess Zelda managed to hand Link the Bow of Light and inform that Ganon, who was born out of Demise's hatred and malice, had given up on reincarnating to achieve its ultimate form. It was now or never for Hyrule, and with the masterful choreography, Zelda created the gaps and Link pierced them to finally open and destroy the main Eye of Malice. As a consequence, Zelda was freed from her imprisonment and left to conclude the job of sealing, or perhaps even annihilating the beast.
And this is where we are left. With Ganon gone, will another evil rise, or will Calamity Ganon return again in another Zelda title? There are many different possibilities, but Breath of the Wild has definitely opened up for much more creativity and new inclusions when it comes to the villains. But what do you think? Sound off in the comment section down below, because we want to hear your opinion. If you enjoyed this extensive timeline video and the study of the villains in the Zelda series, then make sure to give a like, and if you're new, subscribe and press the notification bell. Speaking of, a big thanks goes to all of you who helped us surpass 150,000 subscribers. We're of course deeply grateful for all the support from everyone over the last 3.5 years, and also want to thank all our patrons that made this theory or remake possible. If you haven't subscribed already, then make sure to do so, as we now begin the hopefully not too long climb to 200,000 subscribers. And I also want to thank all of you who came out at Summer in the City, including Sean, who was so grateful to make a Breath of the Wild Link wig for me, which you can see on the screen right now. So thank you so much, Sean, that was an excellent work. We also want to thank all our gracious patrons, including Patreon Royal Producer Kenyatta Ali, for the generous contribution to the realm that made this timeline theory and remake possible. Until the next big Commonwealth Realm production, this was Conrad Vanis, Jason Dameron, and Leo of the Commonwealth Realm, and Ed of Zeltik, and we will see you soon.